Yes, it is. It is the David Paul Blumenshine Show, and I am DPB slash, I guess it's the DPB show, and I'm David Paul Blumenshine. I get that confused sometimes. That's what happens when you go by three names: David Paul Blumenshine, the DPB show. Hey, you know what? It's going to be a beautiful day out there, first and foremost. Thank God for the weather today. We've got some relief from the heat wave that came through here. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the heat wave. And as it pertains to McLean County Fair, I was out there the other day when they suspended the carnival until the evening because of excessive heat. But it's also obviously symptomatic of what's going on in the culture. Believe me, it has infiltrated every part of our life. I want to talk to you today, most importantly, about the numbers. See, numbers don't lie, but sometimes we fudge the numbers to obviously support our lies. But numbers really, truly don't lie, whether that be the temperature, whether that be the ballots counted in any particular election. Numbers cannot lie. But liars can use numbers to definitely support an initiative or whatever it might be, whether it's a non-for-profit business, whether it's a for-profit business, numbers can be manipulated. But ultimately, at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. We're going to cover all that today. Obviously, we have two great guests coming up, one being the chairperson of the Illinois Conservative Union, who has basically given her entire life to understanding election integrity and where we are currently at. And that's going to kind of intertwine with my discussion on numbers and numbers here in Illinois, because I did not uncover this until just recently. And I kind of am kicking myself for that, but I'm also going to tell you a little bit about that. My other guest is going to be no other than uh, uh, the attorney of the people of Illinois, Thomas DeVore, and he's going to give us an update on where we are at with this legislation, or I should say, with these lawsuits in regards to the legislation that was passed for the gun ban bills that are out there and where they are at in the Supreme Court, not only on the state side, but on the federal side. But let me go back to first and foremost the scenario out at the McLean County Fair, uh, and I get it. I get the fact that everybody is hypersensitive to everything. We saw that played out with Jason Aldean's song, not or tried that in a small town. I was almost saying not in a small town, but that's off over the campaign of not in our town, which is the irony there is crazy too, because you know nothing is what it appears to be in the world that we live in. And you've heard me say it behind this mic. It's the land of make believe. So let me go back to the county fair here on Thursday Friday. I'm sorry, Friday, when they suspended the carnival due to excessive heat. I inquired about the suspension of the carnival rides, and they had already prepared for a relatively big day, one of the bigger days out at the McLean County Fair, which is going on today. So, in case you didn't get out there, today would be a perfect day. It's not an excessive heat day, or at least I don't think it is. I guess maybe you should call before you go. No, I'm just kidding there. But I inquired about why it was that they suspended the carnival on this day, Friday, where the heat indices were going to be well over 108 degrees. Um, and the response that I received is kind of troubling, and it's actually indicative of what we currently are seeing in our culture. I asked one of the representatives for the McLean County Fair um, if they were expecting a big day today. And she said, no, not really, because we have shut down the carnival. And I said, wow. I said, what is the reason behind that? She said, well, because of the excessive heat warnings. I said, has that ever happened in the history of the McLean County Fair? And she said, no. And I said, well, then why are they doing it this year? She said, do you not realize that we have never had heat like this before? I'm not kidding you, with a straight face. And she appeared to be somebody who was knowledgeable and was able to. She was older, so it wasn't like she hasn't lived through summers here in Illinois or anywhere across the United States, which leads me into my other story that I also heard this week. Someone told me that what Phoenix, Arizona is experiencing with 2 solid weeks of temperatures over 105 degrees has never happened before in the history of the United States. Well, I guess I had to put myself in my Wayback Machine, go back to 1992, when I actually happened to be out in Phoenix, Arizona during August, when they were on day number like 97 of over 100 degrees in temperature. 97. I don't know, Kevin, is 97 greater than 2 weeks?
Yes, it is, DPB.
97 days. Okay,
Yep.
so I didn't have to get my my abacus. What do you call that? Abacus.
Abacus.
I didn't have to get my abacus out to kind of calculate that. But my point being here, and this is why it is that now we're utilizing the numbers to confuse everyone. If you are relatively new to climate change, because that's all that we talk about on mainstream media, then you would truly believe that temperatures like we're experiencing here last week are temperatures that have never happened before. And the fascinating thing about that is the amount of people that just cave, no different than what transpired during the COVID crisis. And I call it a crisis rather than a pandemic because I believe we were a nation in crisis because we weren't looking at the data, the scientific data and models that would have led us to act the way we acted. Instead, we went on emotions. We went with what was being reported. We listened to those people who obviously had a vested interest in making sure that they continue to perpetuate this insanity of fear and getting people all spun out of control. This lady at the fair was convinced that never before has the McLean County Fair experienced a day where it was over 100 degrees heat indice, other than just last year when yours truly was sitting out there at the McLean County Republican tent in temperatures well over 100 degrees heat indices. So what does that lead us to believe? And I know you listening here at Cities 92, and we do appreciate that. And by all means, please tell me your stories of your past summers where you've endured the heat that has come upon us, because I know, once again, according to some of those folks out there, we've never had heat like this before. So I want to make sure that I'm just not alone in thinking that the 97 days that they had out in Phoenix back in 1992 or any other summer when I was out in the cornfields detasseling and it was 100 degrees at 10 in the morning, that you have actually experienced heat like that. But you can do that by contacting us at 309-451-9299. That's 309-451-9299. That is not only our text line, but that is also our studio line. So we'd like to hear from you. And, if you're sitting around your computer, you don't have to listen to us on the radio or by streaming. You can actually go to Facebook Live, where we are basically podcasting from our Facebook page. That's Cities 92.9. We're also on Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. And you can catch all of that there. The DPB show at YouTube. Love for you to go out and hit the subscribe button, like it, share it with as many people as you can, because once again, as I've said many times over, whether it's myself, Ty Smith, Kat Peterson, Kevin Ferris, Chandler and Swan, we have a different perspective than is delivered by most avenues or media sources here in Central Illinois. We take a whole different look. In fact, I guarantee you will not hear the information you're going to hear today in not only on the DPB show, but on Speechless afterwards, because these things are not reported by the mainstream legacy media, those who are in favor of continuing to tell you that for the first time in the history of the United States, we are experiencing temperatures that we've never had before. So please share your scenarios, join the chat, let us know your stories about heat during your lifetime. But anyhow, getting right to the numbers, because I said this is going to be a show about the numbers. Um, I don't know if many of you caught the show on Friday with Kat Peterson, but I kind of gave you a tease to what we were going to talk about today for the most part on the DPB show. And that is by the numbers, our elections here in Illinois. And you would have thought that somebody like myself, who had a position with a gubernatorial campaign dealing with election integrity. And if this is a shock to you, yes, I was part of Darren Bailey for Illinois' campaign as their election integrity statewide director in charge of 102 counties. And that basically equals about 10,500 precincts, voting precincts. But we were adamant about going out and getting people to be poll watchers, to be election judges, to monitor the election observers up and down, uh, from Cook County to Cairo, Illinois, which I would have given you the county, but I don't know what county Cairo's in. I'm sure it probably is right there because I dealt with all of these counties and their coordinators and people working on
Alexander County.
Alexander. See, I knew I was going to say White County because that's down there too. Or Macoupin County. Do you know there's a Macoupin County, Kevin?
I did not know that.
Macoupin County. There's 102 counties. It's not like Iowa where there's like 50. Even Florida with 22 million people only has, I think it's 74 counties. We have 102, obviously, and we don't have quite the population of Florida. But my position with the campaign was to oversee election integrity. And you would have thought, I would have thought that we were going down the right road. However, I didn't realize to what extent our elections have changed. And here's what I have found out now. I happened to be at a meeting where I sat across the room from former Senator Bill Brady. And I started thinking, wow, Bill ran for governor. And he came within 32,000 votes of Pat Quinn. And I wanted to find out in 2010 what that looked like. And here's what it looked like. That year, there were 3.7 million votes casted, or ballots counted, I should say. I shouldn't say votes casted because I guess they are synonymous.
Synonymous.
Thank you. Kevin has to correct my English too at times because I get going and I can't necessarily get words out. Synonymous. I got it.
There you go, bud.
All right, synonymous. That counting votes and counting ballots are the same thing, but I don't think they are. I truly don't. And the reason for that is some people who are voting or casting ballots don't even know who they're voting for. They're just going with the flow. They're low information voters, low propensity voters, and they are just basically filling in blanks. But there were 3.7 million ballots counted in 2010. Out of those 3.7 million ballots, 1.7 million, 45,000 went for Pat Quinn. 1.7 million, 13,000 went for Bill Brady. Once again, 32,000 votes separated those two candidates for governor. Quinn obviously won. Therefore, he was the governor. Now, if we advance to the election of 2014, and this one I didn't have when I was on Cat's show the other day. 2014, Bruce Rauner and Evelyn Senghetti ran against Pat Quinn and Paul Vallis. Quinn being the incumbent, because like I just shared with you, he won the 2010 election. This year, 2014, in our Wayback Machine, there were 3.6 million ballots counted. So the difference being about 100,000 votes difference. Republican gubernatorial candidate Bruce Rauner had 1.8 million, 23,000 votes. Democrat incumbent had 1.6 million, 81,000. You're probably saying to yourself, so DPB, you said it's by the numbers. Well, think about this. We're now into 2014. We came out of a 2010 election. We've gone from 3.7 million to 3.6. When we come back from break, I'm going to share with you what happened in 2018 and 2022, because I think you're going to find it very fascinating on what transpired with the COVID elections. And once again, 2018 wasn't a COVID election, but it was in preparation of the COVID election. We're going to cover that and many other things. We're going to have Carol Davis from the Illinois Conservative Union, Tom DeVore, yes, we the people's attorney, and they're going to be on air with us explaining everything that's going on, because we're going to continue to fight. We're not giving up this fight, and we're going to understand these numbers. But we're going to do that after we take a break for our sponsors here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. What's that? Well, so now, ODog, which you might not be aware of it, but we're live still on Facebook. So, and YouTube, and Twitter, and Rumble. Well, they can kind of hear you because you have to be in the mic. They might hear it faintly. They hear me talking to somebody named ODog off camera. If you come over here into the camera, they might be able to see you, and then they'll say, "Oh, that's dog, oh dog." But anyhow, one of the things I want to share with you guys, once again, thank you very much for coming and being part of our Facebook Live. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, DPB Show. And you can also find us on Twitter and on Rumble. And, you might even look up ODog there. ODog, are you on Rumble or YouTube? You're not? You need to get you. Because ODog has this great program called Get In Where You Fit In. And I think it's ingenious. And if we could ever get him up to speed on the platforms of social media, I think it would be beneficial to a lot of people. ODog is definitely someone who is more concerned about serving others than he is serving himself. He's concerned about people's health and wellness and fitness. And that's not only physically, spiritually, emotionally. He does a great job. In fact, I would like to get him on air, but I'd have to prepare myself to cover all the content that we can talk about. We might have to do that. Would you be open for that? Then you're going to have to be on camera, though. You just can't be hiding over there in the corner, ODog. But what
Nobody puts ODog in a corner.
Nobody puts ODog in the corner, baby. That's from a movie. You know what movie that's from? Dirty Dancing. No, is it Dirty? Yeah, Dirty Dancing.
Because nobody puts baby in a corner.
That's Patrick Swayze.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyhow, speaking of obviously all things of what we are doing spiritually and emotionally, we're back on air here shortly. But I want to tell you a story a little later.
5 seconds.
For you only. For you only, those Facebook followers. The numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers. That's what it was. That's the quote that I used to hear, and many of you might have heard that quote before. And I want to make sure we go ahead and continue with our discussion about the numbers as it pertains to the elections in Illinois for the past, specifically the gubernatorial elections over the past 4 election cycles for governor. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to all of you that are tuning in. By all means, realize you can catch us on Facebook Live if you're not driving in the car. You can stream us. We have an app. There is an app for this, cities929.com. You can see that. Download our app. Go to our YouTube channel, The DPB Show, and smash that like button and subscribe. Share some things in the chat. We'd love to hear your opinions about the numbers, specifically the catastrophic temperatures, according to some of those folks that have never existed before. We'd like to hear about your experience growing up as a kid, whether you actually endured 100-degree temperatures. I was telling people out the fair that I had to walk 5 miles both ways in temperatures of 100 degrees or greater, and actually it wasn't 5. Well, it was 5 miles because it was down one row for the corn, back of the other row for the corn. It was blistering heat. And yes, they kept us hydrated. We drank water. We found shade. That's what we do. We didn't retreat and hide and cancel culture, everything. But anyhow, I want to get back to the numbers because I know we're up against another break at the bottom of the hour. So here we go. So we had that the election in 2010 was 3.7 million voters. Then in 2014, it was 3.6 million. Now, when we advance to the 2018 election, in 2018, Bruce Rauner was the incumbent, and he was running against J.B. Pritzker for the first time. That year, in 2018, there were 4.5 million ballots counted. J.B. Pritzker ended up with 2.4 million votes. Bruce Rauner got 1.7 million, 65,000. So a little below his 1.8 million, 20,000 votes that he received in 2014 to beat Pat Quinn to win the gubernatorial election in Illinois. Once again, focus on the fact that we went up almost 700,000 votes from 2010. 700,000 votes. Those votes, Republicans didn't realize any movement in their numbers. We go back to, or we then fast forward to 2022, where Darren Bailey takes on Governor Pritzker, who is now the incumbent governor from the 2018 election. And there were 4.1 million ballots counted last year in November. And out of those 4.1 million votes, J.B. Pritzker got 2.2 million. Darren Bailey got 1.7 million, 39,000. So the difference between Darren Bailey as the gubernatorial candidate in 2022, Bruce Rauner, gubernatorial candidate in 2018, and Bill Brady in 10, they all got roughly 1.7 million votes. However, the Democrat Party, under Pat Quinn, went from 1.7 million votes to as high as 2.4 million. And then it dropped down a little bit in 2022 by 200,000 votes to 2.2 million. My point being this, the numbers don't lie. So how is it that we went from, we added that many votes to the voter count when the population of Illinois decreased by 1 million people? Those are the questions that we need to answer. In fact, my next guest is going to be able to hopefully to help us walk through that a little bit. That being Carol Davis. She is the guru of election integrity, and she knows more about what's happening behind the scenes to ensure that we understand these numbers, because numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers. Hey, more of that when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So Carol's on the line. Okay, so we got Carol Davis coming up next. Hopefully you will stay with us here. But I wanted to tell you something during the last break. I had the opportunity this morning to do something that I have never done before. I am now part of the praise and worship band at the Tabernacle Church. I know many of you realize that I attend the Tabernacle. Pastor Timothy James Farrell has the show Victorious Life from 12:30 to 1 o'clock, preceding my show, the DPB show, every Sunday. Pastor Tim, being the pastor, I'm now part of the praise and worship band. The other person in that band is my daughter, Well, there's many people, but one of the other singers is my daughter, Hannah. So I had the opportunity this morning to sing with my daughter, Hannah. And I will tell you, there is no greater joy that you can have than seeing your own child, offspring, flourishing uh, and really praising God and doing that with her. Uh, if I go home to be with the Lord uh, before this show is over, then I have lived a victorious life, a full life, because that is more important than anything else. It's not about the cars, the money, the way that we navigate this world. It's truly about our children, our family, and nurturing within them an independent relationship, a independently dependent relationship on God and God alone. Only that way, I think you can truly have joy in your life. And all I got to say about that. I know we're coming back here shortly. Okay, I thought we were coming back on. I guess we're not. But just to weigh into that, the message this morning was amazing. The freedom to live a life by serving others here in this country. We can do that like no other country. That, if you think about it, the cool thing about it, the three-letter word sin, the middle letter is I. Well, I usually deals with selfishness. That's what I is. In fact, think about this, Kevin. We live in an O-Dog sitting over here on my left. We live in a world that what is the biggest thing that goes on right now? People take selfies. That's the root of the word selfishness. Selfie, because we're all about the self. So now think about this. If S-O-N, son, the son of God is Jesus, what is the letter in the middle between the S and the N? O dog. You got it, O dog. That also stands for others. Others, O dog. That's what O means. So if you take the emphasis off sin, the I in the middle, and you put it on O, others, or O dog, that's that's what gives us great joy is by serving. Um, and being a servant. I mean, Christ came, right, to serve others. And I think that's very important, which is, once again, being part of the praise and worship band at the Tabernacle is an amazing experience. Today was my first time with the praise and worship band, and it was just flat out. And like I said, my daughter, um, I've never experienced anything like that before. So if you get an opportunity, 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings, the Tabernacle out on West Hovey, you can look up the Facebook page. We're there. But I think we're coming back shortly, and we're going to have Carol Davis, and I'm going to give her an introduction. And I'm going to let her make sense of some of these numbers. I'm going to ask her about it because that's obviously a big part of our show. I hear you. I have a special friend in studio today. He's not on camera. He's stage left of me, and he said that he needs to take a nap today. Well, I need to take a nap too. Oh, dog. I happened to be up yesterday morning early to help my daughter Cassidy out. She's finishing up her second bachelor's in the accelerated nursing program at Illinois State University, where she will get her bachelor's of nursing degree in 15 months that usually takes you 4 years. But she needs some help in doing her clinicals at Carl Clinic here, or Carl Hospital. And so I picked up Grandpuppy and brought Grandpuppy home. That proceeded into the men's ministry group that I take part in on Saturday mornings once a month. And then I went from there to help my friends Desi and Nick Anderson out at the Hesed House wedding venue, where I was moving chairs in that sun that wasn't as hot as it was on Friday. And once again, we're not going to relive the heat indices of Friday because they were the highest temperatures that have ever existed, ever, in reporting of weather. I'm just kidding. I'm being facetious there. Obviously, we've had plenty of days, well over 100, but you would believe that we've never experienced that before. But so I had like an 18-hour day. I got home at 12 o'clock last night. And that's just uncustomary for me because I usually am in bed by 8:30. It's the way I roll. I go to bed sometimes in the summer before the sun goes down. That way I can get up in the morning and do the things and be prepared for a new day. Um, However, I don't want to hold off on our next guest because before we went to break, I was telling you about these numbers in Illinois and how conflicted I am with the numbers that have been presented, voter numbers, over the past 4 gubernatorial elections. And I decided I need an expert, a guru. And that would be our next guest, Carol Davis. She is the chairperson of Illinois Conservative Union. She has done election integrity longer than any other person that I know. Now, Carol knows people that have been working at it probably longer than her. But when it comes to someone understanding election integrity, that's Carol Davis is the go-to person. Thank you, Carol, for joining us today on Cities 92.9.
Well, thank you so much, David. It's just a pleasure to be with you. And we have, of course, some great news to share. And we've got some inspirational activities that people can do to make this next election honest and fair.
Well, Carol, I'm going to just let you go right into all of those things. But before I let you off the phone today, I want you to address some of the numbers that I found that I find interesting, and you might be able to give our audience a little bit more clarity on how these numbers became what they did, specifically in our gubernatorial elections.
Well, and thank you, David, because I've been listening as you've been parsing out those numbers. And, really, elections have become a numbers game. And the left realized that long before we did. We, base everything on principles and values and winning people over to, supporting our principles and values. And to the left, it's all about counting pieces of paper and circles and filled in, dots. So, but here's what, we've been at this a long time. And people think there are quick fixes, but there's no quick fixes. And the little, result we've had recently with our phenomenal victory with Judicial Watch is a perfect example of persistence and perseverance, and that there's no quick fixes. Back in 2017, September of 2017, on one of my trips to Washington, I made a cold call to the offices of Judicial Watch in D.C. And I knocked on the door and said, I'm here from Illinois. I had a Tea Party friend, Claire Van Horn from the DuPage Tea Party with me. And we said, we're from Illinois and we need help with our elections. And we like to joke that after they stopped laughing hysterically, they invited us in and we started talking about voter rolls. So then, as you know, it's been a long process. We had to build our case. We had to go down to, we requested the voter rolls because we know it's a numbers game. This is where the anomalies are coming from: inactive voters being left on the rolls, people who are dead being left on the rolls, people who have moved being left on the rolls. And we suspect that some of these voters that are missing in action, their ballots are being voted for them by people who have ill intentions about the results of the election. They want to sway it. So the key is voter rolls. And we've all known this for a long time, but we've actually been hard at work over years doing something about it. So we've got our lawsuit with Judicial Watch that was finally settled back in June of 21, by the way. The judge found in our favor that, yes, Illinois Conservative Union and Judicial Watch are right. The federal law takes precedence over the state law regarding access to the voter rolls. And so the state, agreed in June of 21. We've been in the settlement stage, David, for the last several years. So what happened on July 21st of this month is the announcement was finally made by Judicial Watch that the lawsuit has been settled And Illinois Conservative Union and our attorneys, Judicial Watch, will now have access to the 8.1 million voters on Illinois voter rolls. Hallelujah. Now, what happens next? Well, we aren't putting all our eggs in one basket. We use a multifaceted approach from Illinois Conservative Union through our election integrity program, IEIP.org, Illinois Election Integrity Program.org, IEIP.org. And we've actually had a voter roll project going on for years. We've been training frontline precinct committeemen. Pull your precinct list. Go knock on the doors. Make sure those are real voters. And then, if they're not, make sure we're pursuing that through the legal process to get those voters off the rolls. So that's the bottom-up approach. We've also, in the last year, of course, as you know, connected with a great network nationally. Cleta Mitchell, expert election attorney, has her Election Integrity Network, and they have phenomenal, top-notch people who are working with us now on voter roll programs. And we've got an Illinois voter roll working group led by Willard Helander, the former county clerk in Lake County, Illinois, doing a phenomenal job of getting our volunteers moving on getting the rolls cleaned up through that process. Now, a rough estimate quickly from Judicial Watch when they announced the suit and the settlement is that they're estimating there are about 800,000 inactive registrants on the voter rolls that should be removed.
Wow, it's
Do you
kind
think
of
that'll
interesting.
make a difference?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting that number 800,000 is close to the influx in numbers from that 2010 gubernatorial race of 3.7 million to the height of 4.5 million votes that were cast in the 2018 election of Pritzker defeating Rauner. So I find that interesting that is so close as a number.
Yes, that number really resonates, doesn't
Hey,
it?
Carol, real quick, because I know that this is an important point too, and you can speak into this. I just recently I read an article from Right Side Broadcast Network, Summer Lane of July, that the great state of Texas is poised to withdraw from the Electronic Registration Information Center, ERIC. You obviously are the first person that introduced me to ERIC, and how many states at one time, participated with ERIC? 32 of them, and a lot of them have fallen off. I think they're down to 26 states now, but we in Illinois still utilize ERIC. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. And it's going to take a big effort to get us out of ERIC. But the exciting thing is as more states realize that ERIC is fundamentally a left-wing voter registration program and not the impartial organization that helps everyone clean the voter rolls, then more states will drop out. And we're already working nationwide on a replacement for ERIC that's actually a true voter maintenance program. So there are so many exciting things happening in the election integrity space. But, we don't go out there and, yell it from the mountaintops because we don't always want the left to know everything we're up to. You know what I mean? So,
well, and
yes,
I agree
the
with
news
it.
about ERIC's exciting.
And I find it fascinating because within the context of this article, and you spoke into our folks and our friends at Judicial Watch, they put out a white paper that basically said this about ERIC. On voter roll cleanups, ERIC does not actually require that member states remove ineligible voters from their registration rolls. States are only required to initiate contact with those voters. ERIC claims to have identified 2.4 million, actually almost 2.5 million registered voters who relocated across state lines, 203,210 duplicate registrations, and 65,437 deceased registered voters. And these were part of Judicial Watch's study notes and white paper. So you're right. The work is being done. And Carol, you've been doing this work for many years, but as you let off with, it took us this long. I mean, they built their program around the way that they run elections, now here in Illinois. And maybe you can give our listeners a little bit of insight that, through that 2010 election with Bill Brady and Pat Quinn, and then on into the 2014 election of Pat Quinn and Bruce Rauner, um, early voting as it exists today with the vote by mail ballots, really, that wasn't a big part of those electoral counts. It wasn't until we got into the 2018, especially the 2020 and 2022 elections.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this, like you say, the plan has been in place with the left for years, and they've just been quietly working the plan. Eric was a huge part of it because you're right. Eric's contract with these states does not mandate that they remove those ineligible voters. But guess what the contract does mandate? Eric sends states and local election authorities lists of what are called EBUs, eligible but unregistered voters. And the contract with Eric mandates that the state make every effort to get every one of those EBUs, eligible but unregistered voters, onto the voter rolls, David. So in other words, Eric's primary role is to load the rolls with people who could care less about voting so that those spots are reserved for when maybe someone who's very duplicitous needs to pull a few hundred extra ballots and vote in those people's place because they know, we call it their bank of unlikely voters, David. They piled these people onto the rolls who they know are very unlikely to request a ballot. And guess what? Magically, that ballot gets voted.
Magically, those ballots appear. Hey, we have Carol Davis from the Illinois Conservative Union. She is the go-to person here in Illinois when it comes to election integrity. Carol, can you stay with us through the break? I want to get back to just this most recent election where almost 1.1 million people voted ahead of Election Day. I want you to kind of give the breakdown of that. And we're going to do that if you're agreeable to do that. Carol, can you hang with us for a couple of minutes yet? Well, we're going to be back here shortly at Cities 92.9 with Carol Davis to break down these numbers, because once again, numbers don't lie, but people lie with numbers. And that's what we have to be better at. We have to understand how elections truly work. And they've changed the rules, but we can't sit around and cry about it because that's not going to get us anywhere. We've got to we got to get active. We got to get engaged in the process. But we're going to tell you more about that with Carol Davis when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay. Back at you here, Facebook Live. Thank you again. I do see we have some people out there. Thank you for joining in the chat. I do read the chats. Wow, look at that. Even our very own Kat Peterson, Katrina Peterson, is in the chat. She's saying those numbers are nuts. And she's right. Those numbers are nuts, Kat. Thank you, Carol Murray Anderson. His glory on your legacy. She's referring, if you were with us during the last break, I was talking about my experience of singing on stage with the praise and worship band this morning at the Tabernacle with my daughter, Hannah. She's amazing. So let's see. Oh, we got, hey, it's Mo, Larry, and Curly. We've got a new, we've got a new troll on our Facebook Live. Oh, is that on YouTube? Oh, that's right. Oh, is that what that means? Oh, I get it. So maybe that he's just made his way. Larry, let's see here. Let me wait. Benford's Law. Absolutely. Hey, Larry, is Benford? Is that a moderate source? Is that a Larry? Yeah. yeah, mathematical. Exactly. Larry, once again, look at the numbers. You tell me there were 1.1 million ballots casted early. Out of those ballots, 66% of them were Democrat ballots. I don't know, Larry. I didn't take, I know a little bit about Gauss-Jordan and the quadratic equation. If you want to fill that into the comment section, please do. That would be a higher level math, but probability, computations, permutations. Larry, I know a little bit about math. Okay. Basic math too. This is really simplistic in math. So, but hey, wish you the best. Thanks for coming around. Obviously, uh, we always appreciate those who want to get intellectually dishonest with us, because we will give intellectually honest with people. That's what we prefer. Um, let's see, any other commenters in the chat? Oh, what did Jim have to say? Oh, thank you. Great to have Carol explain this. Thank you, DPB. Yeah. Yeah, Carol's a great source. She's been at this for a very long time. We're going to be coming back on air here in a second. So go sleep, O-Dog. O-Dog's taken out of here. O-Dog comes and hangs out with me in studio, and I'm going to get O-Dog back in here for an extended studio visit at some point where he can tell us a little bit about getting in where you fit in. I love his program. You don't have to be somebody that's always working out, always doing these unbelievable workouts that you might see on social media. I mean, the reality of it is most of us can't fulfill or sustain, I should say, workouts like that over an extended period of time. But what we can do is we can be conscious about getting in where we fit in by first and foremost looking at what kind of consumption we have, the way we eat, things like that. Hey, before we went to break, you might be aware that I had Carol Davis. She is the chairperson of the Illinois Conservative Union. She has spent more time researching election integrity than anyone else that I know in Illinois. And of course, she can tell you that she is only as good as she is because she leans into people on the national level. Carol, once again, thanks for sticking with us through the break.
Happy to do it, Dave.
Hey, Carol, just so you know, because we are part of chat rooms now, we have all of the different platforms covered: Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. We allow everyone their say. I'd like you to address some of this. I'm looking over in the chat, and this particular chatter, who obviously probably isn't somebody that would be part of the Illinois Conservative Union or any union that deals with conservative values, but he wants to say that the numbers don't lie according to the Benford's law. And I was basically making the statement on our Facebook Live that they had 1.1 million ballots that were counted, or I should say, that were turned in to the election authorities before Election Day. And out of those 1.1 million, whether they be vote by mail or early voting, were 66% of them were Democrat ballots, which goes to show you how much ground has been gained. That's what we were talking about earlier in the show, was the discrepancy between the numbers of the last four gubernatorial elections, where it went from roughly 3.7 million up to as high in 2018 as 4.5. And then it regressed a little bit by 200,000 votes. All the while, the state of Illinois has moved from the fifth most populated state in the United States of America to the sixth position. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, a huge part of this is that there obviously a lot of good, conservatives are leaving the state. However, there's still a lot of independents here. And of course, people on both sides of the aisle. But here's some eye-opening statistics. A recent CNN poll, just a week or two ago, CNN is not some far-right, organization. They polled on this question: do U.S. elections reflect the will of the people? Only 29% of Republicans said, yes, they reflect the will of people. 38% of independents believe our elections reflect the will of the people, and only 57% of Democrats believe that our elections reflect the will of the people. There is a crisis of confidence in our elections. And so what we've been doing all these years and what we continue to do is we're not going to just pat the voter's hand and make sympathetic noises and then say, oh, well. We are digging in, and everyone can join us to restore confidence in our elections. That is our entire focus, because if our voters are not confident, they will not cast their ballot, and it is a numbers game. We have to overwhelm them with turnout. We have to turn out more voters than they can cheat. You see what I'm saying? And, a huge part of this, like I say, we use a multifaceted approach. The Judicial Watch lawsuit is our top-down approach. We're tackling the state from the top down with that, and that's going to be very effective. But a huge part of this is the bottom-up strategy. Become a precinct committee man. Please get with your local party. Get that walk list. Visit those voters. Make sure they're turning out. Drive people to the polls if you have to. We have to have overwhelming numbers of people who are registered. Do some voter registration drives, folks. Come on. There's conservatives out there who aren't even on the rolls. And people in your churches, believe it or not, who are not even voting. So it's a numbers game, folks. We have to have a phenomenal turnout. And as we're working to tamp down the cheating, we have to pump up the number of our voters. That's what it's all about. And don't forget our vulnerable voter program, folks. We have to have every single senior care facility, group home, all of them covered in this next election. And that means all hands on deck. And you can do that through your local party organization.
Well, I do see that Joanne Knippmeyer from our local McLean County Republican Party says, if interested in being a Republican PC or block captain, reach out to the McLean County Republicans. We will get you trained and give you all the resources to get started. Thank you, Joanne, for throwing that into the chat. Carol, as always, it is great to have you on here at the DPB show to bring us up to speed where we are as far as election integrity and future elections. I know that it's not going to happen overnight, but we are doing the work to keep our elections fair, free, and honest. And that's the most important thing about it. Carol, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Well, the best way is to connect with one of our websites. Connect through ilpac.org, ilpac.org, our main site, or our election integrity program, IEIP.org. We need all hands on deck, folks. Give us a call or contact us through the website. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Carol, once again. And we're going to be right back here after the top of the hour break with the news at the DPB show at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. I look like I need a little sunscreen from yesterday. Larry. Used to be, I used to see Colson, or Regina. Could Larry be Regina? This actually sounds like a friend of mine who texts me almost daily, and he says the same. I find it interesting that when people lead off in the chat, who are usually those people, on the other side of the aisle or on the other side of Fantasy Island or the land of make believe, that they always make the statement that we're just parroting propaganda from the alt right or whatever. We're all, who we are. But no, Larry, that when you talk about talking points, that's what you're talking about. All these lawsuits, no, that's not undecided. We just went over that with Judicial Watch. Tom Fenton has plenty of. uh, When you look at the way that Madigan has structured our current state, Larry, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Madigan's up on indictment. He wasn't an honest guy. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the Biden crime family, they're under investigation. There's no doubt in my mind that people with criminal minds are able to circumvent the law for a very long time. But there are people in jail right now for election fraud. And there's going to continue to be more and more people here we go. Larry's an anti-Trumper. I picked that up real quick. So, yeah. Kevin wants me to stop engaging you. I have to agree, but Larry, how did Larry get on there? Tell me how that. Oh, he found me on YouTube. Well, good for you. Hey Larry, can you do me a favor before I let you go? Subscribe, please, and like and share with your friends because we need more people like you, Larry, coming on, basically giving us what we know we can hear from the likes of the Morning Joe show. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to have Tom DeVore at the bottom of the hour. He is at 2:30, but I want to kind of bring up to speed where we've gone and kind of throw these numbers back out there because I think it's kind of crazy. And I have some theories on how we jumped in numbers. Kevin, what do you think it is?
Honestly, my focus has not been. I think we should just focus on getting ballot harvesting. I don't really care about the old numbers anymore. I care about what we can do in the future.
Well, how we can get 700,000 more votes.
Yep, and I think the end of what Carol Davis had to say was the most important thing is we need to be registering people.
Because we don't turn out enough people at the polls. So even with that said, we don't have enough Republicans turning out to the ballot box.
Republicans on board with mail-in voting.
So this is really cool. And for all of you that are in the chat, so so we got cities, obviously the Facebook, we got Twitter, and we've got Rumble and YouTube all populating the same chat.
Rumble will not populate on here.
Rumble's
Twitter
not.
has no chat, so it's Facebook and YouTube that will populate in here. That's what's always how it's
Okay. I just see the little Twitter icon, which soon will be an X on my. Well, it's not popping up, but it's showing up on the up above.
Oh well, yeah, it's streaming to Twitter, but
Yeah.
it's not going to have any chat from Twitter because
There's no chat on Twitter. And then the other little icon. So this is fascinating. Let's see here. Kevin's going to go get a jolt of something. He needs an energy drink. All right. Very cool. Appreciate you guys, though, joining in the chat as I'm continuing to learn more and more about all things as it pertains to streaming and how we interact here on the different platforms. What a great guest Carol Davis is. By all means, go back out to the Illinois Conservative Union or the Illinois Election Integrity Project. It is the DPB show, and I'm David Paul Blumenshine here on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. When I say beyond, that's because we have advanced the way that we deliver our content to you from Cities 92.9. We do that now on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble, and on YouTube. So get out there and subscribe to all of those platforms. We would appreciate it if you share that with you. If you're still just tuned in to us on Cities, well, we do appreciate that. Obviously, that is old school, as one of our sponsors says. You know, radio is kind of old school, and there's plenty of you that still love to listen to the radio. You can text us at 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. 9299. That is our studio line that also doubles as our text line. I would love to hear your insights, especially as it pertains to numbers and the numbers that, you know, once again, when you look at the numbers, you have to look at the historical perspective if you're ever going to learn how to move beyond where you're currently at. Because ultimately, to put the ladder up against the same wall and climb the same ladder and expect to end up somewhere else, it just doesn't work. So understanding how to advance, how to get up there. I think Carol Davis, if you weren't with us, made a great point. And if you didn't catch Carol Davis, by all means, go back and find the podcast or to listen to a replay of the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Rumble, and find out what she said, because she's so true. She's been working at this for years. Because, you know, when we look at what has happened, and it's funny because, you know, election integrity has been a concern of both sides of the aisle. I mean, I think there's montages of audios played by Dan Bongino, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro. Those are the headliners of Cities 92.9 that basically tell the Democrats, basically complaining, screeching about elections of days gone by, whether it be the Gore-Bush election, whether it be the Trump election against Hillary in 2016. Everybody seems to think that, you know, when their guy's in charge, that suddenly elections need to be worked on. Well, elections have needed to be worked on for a long time. And part of that is because people have found ways to manipulate them. And we know that. We've seen it. There's Kevin across the way. Kevin's come on screen. That means he has something important to say.
I just have something to say. Well, because here's the thing, and I know we have our fun little or fun person in our comments and everything like that. The main thing I want to say is that I think problems with elections fall on both ends. I mean, and there's obviously should be legislation to restore public trust in elections. I mean, when in 2016, you had the Democrats crying Russia, Russia, Russia. And yes, we found that to be untrue. And then obviously then in 2020, conservatives and Republicans were claiming election fraud. And whether or not that's true, I know that obviously that there's different sides of the opinion on that. There obviously is a clear public distrust in our elections, and the fact that no one is working on legislation, or that when people do try to work on legislation like voter ID and securing our elections through common sense reforms, they're labeled as racist, bigots, and anti-democracy and everything.
Homophobic, xenophobic.
And so, but it's clear. I mean, both sides of the aisle have claims that elections are rigged. Why don't we actually put in policies, even if they're placebos, even if they actually aren't actually fixing anything? What we need to be focusing on is fixing public trust in elections. That's really where
and that's what Carol alluded to, right?
Mm-hmm.
She gave the statistics from a CNN poll that shows a good portion of America does not have confidence and faith in our electoral process. And once that happens, you see voter apathy. That's unfortunate, right? Is when people don't feel confident about something, they just give up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what your point being is, how do we get, you know, the numbers to change a little bit, you know, whether that's getting more Republicans involved in the process of vote by mail, you know, that's what it's going to be. 40 days of voting, 14 days of adjudication in Illinois. That is the law right now. Once again, it was set. Yes. Is it something that we like? No. I want to see I want to see paper ballots. I want to see same day voting. I want to see identification handed and given out so we know that those votes are secure. But, you make a good point, Kevin, because when we talk about issues that people are not happy or confident in, look at our immigration. Both sides of the aisle agree that the immigration is broken, right? One would
I don't know. I don't know if both sides agree on that.
Well,
one,
I think when you get beyond the current administration, that meaning that I think on the Democrat side, they would like to see more people allowed in, which gets back to the executive orders and just the opening of the border.
Well, I think you're really getting into the bigger thing, and I think it's changed a little bit. But how politics, especially, used to be was that for the most part, everybody agreed on the issues.
Yeah.
And then the solutions is where the disagrees came about. Nowadays, I think that a good amount of the issues are still agreed upon. But I also believe that there's even issues, things that are seen. Like, I mean, in terms of if you want to talk about the climate change issue, the climate crisis.
Well,
Obviously,
it is the hottest summer on record, just in case you didn't know.
The left believes that is an existential threat, and there are some that claim that the world will end within the next decade.
Or at the very least, we need to shut down
crisis.
the carnival at the McLean County Fair because it is the hottest day on record.
Well, I have an inconvenient truth for everybody. The world will not be gone in 10 years.
Wait a minute. That was Al Gore's movie. Come on, Kevin. Are you saying that Al Gore missed the mark on that? The inventor of the internet, he must have been enjoying some of the same things that Hunter Biden did when he made that movie, because obviously that has shown, and but you're right. The fever has picked up and it's going to continue. Now we have a former Secretary of State, obviously First Lady, former candidate for the presidency, coming out and stating that climate change.
I'm trying to think of who you're talking about. Is that the one that was responsible for 4 deaths in Benghazi? Same person?
Well, now, Kevin, now you're reaching out a little bit. Once again, this is the same fodder, right? Because we don't know the truth, because the truth seems to evade us.
Well, there is some truth though in the fact that there was 3,000 plus emails on a private server wiped, right?
You're just playing T-ball with Larry now. now you're getting Larry's never going to go away if you don't do that.
I don't want Larry to go away. Larry's a lot of fun for me. But the point being is yes, Miss Clinton comes out and claims that it's MAGA Republicans that are the problem for the heat. I was talking about that story on my daily show earlier this week, and I just think it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
But the thing is people believe these figures, these public figures who make statements like that. We all believe that when Hunter Biden went in for his plea deal, which, of course, the Democrats have a montage of sweetheart deal. The Republicans are calling it a sweetheart deal. They're calling it a sweetheart deal. Well, because most people that would be found in avoidance of paying taxes and carrying a gun without a proper license would not be able to get a sweetheart deal. But we all thought that he was going to get a sweetheart deal. He didn't get a sweetheart deal. In fact, he decided to, change the board game he was playing, and he wanted basically to be pardoned from any future type of indictment or anything, which it's like, wow, I guess if you're just going to go for the gusto, you might as well go all in. And he did that with it, which was breaking news. It was a bombshell announcement. The walls are closing in on Hunter Biden. See how we do that? See, we can use all of the cliches that are used by those on the left that don't want to realize that we're winning. I love it when Bongino says it's little victories, like Carol Davis just reported. She's had a victory with Judicial Watch. We're winning some of these battles because it's very easy to manipulate the low propensity, low information voter. And it's also very easy to keep people hostage on plantations, as one particular state senator said, that, that's the Democrat plantation. They keep people constantly in need of governmental programs, that they can't do it without them. that if big brother, big government isn't looking out for you, you'll never be able to make it, because those people on the right, they want to push grandma off the cliff. They want to take away your Social Security, which I think is the biggest contention right now. One of the big issues between Trump and DeSantis is Trump states that DeSantis wants to remove Social Security benefits from the seniors, and Trump says, no, I mean, we can't do that, which unfortunately, there, believe it or not, Kevin, this is going to come as a breaking news,
Okay.
breaking bombshell, is we're going to have to do something
Oh, I'm on
with
your.
Social Security.
Well, that's why I think it's so crazy that you have Republicans that are like, no, we're going to keep Social Security. I mean, as a young person, and I know this is where I differ a lot of times with older Republicans and conservatives, is I mean, like, I want to do away with Social Security as soon as possible. Social Security, one, it's a forced retirement plan. I'd much rather be able to put 30% of my paycheck into my Roth IRA rather than into a losing investment such as Social Security. I mean, statistically, the entire idea of Social Security is also incredibly demeaning in the fact that it's basically betting on people dying. Why do you
No.
think that people are talking about raising the age for it? Is because it's basically saying, hey, we're going to take your money for your entire life and then hope to God you die. So then we don't have to pay it back.
You know, Kevin, there's so much room for true restoration and reformation, and we need to restore so many areas of the federal government. Obviously, in light of what's transpired over the last 3 years under the Biden administration, um, we've weaponized organizations that were never really intended to be in place. But through bureaucracy, we built a bigger government, bigger and bigger and bigger government. And, you know, the thing is you can look all this stuff up. The history of where we've evolved at the size and the level of government, now closing in on $33 trillion in debt, which gets to the heart of Social Security and any other program. It's not sustainable, because the only way to sustain that is through taxpayer funded initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to go to the taxpayer to do that. And now I know everybody's going to say the corporations need to pay their fair share. I don't know where I heard that from. So does Joe Biden's son, Hunter. He needs to pay his fair
share.
He needs to pay his fair share too. But, you know, the bottom line is we're not going to get beyond any of these big issues until we start addressing the issues at hand, which is that these things have been broken for a very long period of time. And you don't, as you said just earlier, Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders agree in theory that the things need to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't agree on what the solution is.
Exactly.
Bernie believes that more government is the solution. Limited government, for my taste, is the solution to all of the problems facing us as Americans. We need to have less governmental programs, which in most cases don't work. They're not designed to work. They're designed to fail, which means that they have to come in and fix the problem that they created by putting forth another solution.
Yeah.
Which never really was going to be a solution. You look like you were going to say something.
Nope. I'm just I'm making sure that we're getting everything wrapped up for this segment, making sure we got everything.
You're looking at the clock, and I was
I'm
watching the
looking at
clock.
the
Hey, you know, we're going to talk about one of the biggest issues that is facing the Illinois Supreme Court. They have it in their hands that there is this legislation that was put forth. Not only we've got past the Safety Act, which obviously there's nothing safety about the Safety Act, and we've moved on to the gun banning bills that J.B. Pritzker would like to see implemented, not only in the state of Illinois. He'd like to take it on the road. He'd like to go on the road show. He'd like to have a road show for the gun banning, which unfortunately you're never going to see that with the amount of gun ownership in this country, the amount of ammunition possessed by private people. Good luck on that. However, in Illinois, you truly might see legislation that will be forced upon the residents of this state by the governor, which will truly restrict and infringe upon your Second Amendment rights, and all for the case of illegal gun activity, because most crimes that have been perpetrated by these mass shooters, by criminals in Chicago, they're not legally held guns. And you can't continue to legislate morality. And that's what they're trying to do. If you took all the guns away from people and now to solve your disputes, I think probably road rage would even kind of amp up. There'd be a plethora of other things because
Potentially.
people, unfortunately, you've got to solve so many other problems with society. Uh, and the biggest problem, I think, is government involvement. I think it takes away the heart of what our country was founded on in the Constitution. Uh, I have my Constitution in the pocket, love to refer to it and read it because it is grossly misunderstood and it's expanded upon most of the times by people who are leveraging a certain narrative or point of view. Hey, we're going to cover that and many other things. Our guest after the bottom of the hour is going to be no other than we, the people's attorney, Tom DeVore, so he can bring us up to speed on all things Second Amendment and where these cases are here, not only in the state of Illinois, but at the federal level. And we're going to do that, obviously after the bottom of the hour. But when we come back, we're going to kind of try to wrap things up and let Kevin tell you a little bit about his show.
I'm still trying to figure out what my show's about today, DPB. So I know I got one thing but I was actually a little mad though, DPB. Usually you have your black shirt, white font.
Yeah,
No black shirt.
I
I
know.
wore it today.
You have the Anti-Socialism Social Club.
I do.
I don't have that on. I have my Cubbies hat on. I heard I don't know what the Cubs did yesterday. I know that they've been in a battle with the St. Louis Cardinals, and I, like anybody else, love baseball. When it comes to Cub Cardinals rivalry, I don't get as adamant about it. And in fact, I love to be in Wrigley Field. I love to be in Busch Stadium. I truly could say, and I've only visited those 2 ballparks that I'm aware of. Let me think. Yep, that's it. I'd like to do what some people have done and gone on the tour of all of the baseball fields in the United States. I think that would be really cool. I was gonna say I thought I went to a Rockies game, but I didn't when I was in Colorado. Um, I do want to go to Miller Park up in Milwaukee. Oh, I knew I'd come up with it. I've been to the Twin Stadium. I think they call it, it's a bank name. I went to a game and watched the Minnesota Twins, and I'm trying to think of who they were playing that game. It was a great game. The Twins ended up winning. So I have been to that baseball park. Safety Park, I think it is. Somebody else might be able to throw that into the chat. Once again, we do appreciate all of you joining us live on Facebook. You can go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel, DPB Show, Twitter, Rumble. Thank you for being with us and chiming in. And thank you, Kevin, for running interference on all that craziness over there in the chat.
Oh, I'm just having fun, DPB.
I know you're having fun. That's what I love about the chat. You can have fun. Kevin, it's funny because how much time do you give to basically devoted in your life to being on a channel? I mean, I enjoy chats, right? But no, my mind's made up. I'm convinced that what I have done, I love it when you say, do your research. Do your research. Kevin, do you do any research? In
A
fact, you're
lot.
researching right now.
I
I
am always
research.
researching
I don't
things.
know how many articles. And the best part about my research is I've got a wife that's 3 times best-selling author, has written 12 novels. That's they average
You're about to
about
come back.
65,000. I'll just do this on air. Well, I know we're on a short time frame before the bottom of the hour, but I was just telling Kevin and our audience over at Facebook, and please, if you haven't tried out our platforms on Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, and YouTube, please do that. Like, subscribe, share. DPB Show, Speechless is also over there. I want to give Kevin an opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit about where he's going to go today, because sometimes you show up in studio and you never know where you might go with your show. But Kevin's a conversationalist and he can carry 2 hours. He probably could carry more. He could carry 4 hours. He could do my show and his show. But I was just telling him that, we talk about research and Kevin's over there typing away and he's pulling up articles. all week long. That's all we do, Kevin. You do shows during the week. You have me come in and do reaction videos to lib TikToks, where these people say the most outrageous things. And it's fascinating because you really realize where people are in their heads and what they think. But I started telling you about my research.
Mhm.
I usually think I do a pretty good deep dive, just like I did. I was just reading a texter was asking me if we talked about Eric. We did talk about Eric. There is an article out there that is the Electronic Registration Information Center, where Judicial Watch just did a big thing on that. But I want to get back to talking about research uh, and as regards to my research. My research, for the most part, comes from my life partner, the person who I'm married to. She is amazing. Why? She's written 12, 11. I think it's 11 or 12. I'm pretty certain it's 11, but it could be 12 fiction novels, which on average have 65,000 words per novel. Kevin, I couldn't come up with 5,000 words.
Well, I'd say you speak at least 5,000 a day, DPB.
Well, that is true. If somebody would just record me and make them into audiobooks, that certain person, that person is my wife. 3 times best-selling author, writes romantic suspense novels. They're written with purpose, right? Because they represent like child trafficking. She was writing about human trafficking, sex trade, before it was The Sound of Freedom. She was doing it back in 2013. But she has a canny ability to find more articles in such a short time frame. And you know what she does when she finds those articles, Kevin?
She sends them to you.
You got it, Kevin. I should be sending them to you, let you research them, and then you could add them to the show content.
I'm always reading an article or something.
Well, and it
DPB.
is because it is fascinating. So when people say, do your research, no, you're wanting us to do your research, meaning not necessarily you're wanting us to research like you research and to read from whether it be Salon magazine or the New
People or
Yorker, People,
Rolling Stone.
Rolling
Oh,
Stone.
I do read Rolling Stone, but usually
and
for
I
a
do
good
read
laugh.
all those. That's right.
Usually for a good laugh. That's
Yeah. Oh, the Washington
yeah,
Post.
well.
I like the Washington Post articles. The New York Times. I reference them. CNN News. I can reference them because they somewhat make our case for us most of the time. They are driven by, telling their story, doing their research, which is not usually how we see it or how I believe the majority of people see it. And I truly believe that. Obviously, um, the chat line today is the busiest I've ever seen it on my YouTube
Oh,
channel.
everybody's loving it, DPB.
I
Well,
love it.
something like that.
That sounds like a McDonald's commercial. I'm loving it. Well, you know what I am loving is our next guest, Tom DeVore, the people's attorney in the state of Illinois. Yes, he was unsuccessful of getting the attorney general position, but I think he's the people's favorite because he is taking on the cause of defending
I had
the
him on my show this
Constitution,
last week.
and you had him on your show. So now he's looking forward to being on my show. So we're going to catch up with Tom and find out what's going on at the Supreme Court level, not only here in the state of Illinois, but at the federal level with these lawsuits that have been filed in regards to the unconstitutional legislation that's being put forth by Governor J.B. Pritzker. Hey, we're going to find out what Tom has to say and so much more when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.
We've gotten some really bad texts.
Well, you know how it is, Kevin. What happens when demons are casted out of people, they come back even stronger. And they're angry. I won't ring it out loud. Yeah. Just so you know, I am a subscriber of having the white pages. I have the subscription. I can find out your cell phone number. FYI. I think I know who this one is. So it's fascinating because people will say whatever they want to say. And you know what? I really feel sorry for you if you think that's what uh, the context of my wife's books are about. You might want to subscribe to something. I don't know what it is. Let's see here.
Subscribe to DPB's YouTube channel.
Yeah,
That's
subscribe
what you
to
should
that's what
subscribe to.
that's what we should subscribe to because if you think you know, I am thankful that I don't have um, to engage at that level. My confidence doesn't come from my ability to read news articles or to listen to podcasts or news shows or to be a commenter. I spend very little time, Kevin, in chat rooms. Uh, I just don't have time, see, because I have to get out of my basement. I don't even have a basement.
I
right
just
now,
have to
Kevin.
shower, and so I can't be spending all my time in chat rooms when I want to take a shower.
Well, and how about working? I did notice something today on the Facebook Live is I've got a little tan from yesterday. Maybe a little burn on the cheeks. I was out helping friends who own a wedding venue. Yes, I'll do a little quick plug for them, the Hesed House. And we were setting up for 182 chairs for an outdoor wedding. So that requires that you offload the chairs from a trailer. Then you, when the wedding's over, you have to put those chairs back on a trailer. But before you do that, when you offload them and put them out and set them up around the beautiful arbor of a wedding venue, you have to wipe them down. So it was hot yesterday. It was hot. I will say something that was really cool about this particular wedding. They were serving a beer there. And I don't know if I can say this or not on air. I better not, but it was some Spotted Cow.
Yeah,
Have you ever had Spotted Cow?
I have. It's a good beer.
I like Spotted Cow. I will tell you, I'm a fan. I believe that it would be nice if they didn't only sell Spotted Cow in Wisconsin, but that's kind of like what's the Yingling?
Oh
Yingling
yeah,
is only
Yuengling.
sold in about 11
That's
states.
how. Have you ever had? There's those seltzers, Happy Dads.
Happy Dads.
Happy Dads didn't used to be in Illinois. They used to be like only, I forgot what state it was, but they've started expanding and now they're in Illinois too.
I saw a can for that, Happy Dads,
Happy
but it's a
Dads.
seltzer.
And it's a seltzer. Yep.
That's
Not
more
just a beer,
that's
but
more like a cider type of seltzer.
kind of.
They're a little crispier, like
mhm.
more like a champagne.
It's kind of like a soda-ish. Like
yeah. I don't know if I'm big on that, Kevin.
it's like a LaCroix with vodka.
I'm gonna have a beer, and I'm gonna have usually one, maybe two if I get really advanced. 3 beers, Kevin, is not for me because I'm at an age where 3 beers is way too many. But we won't go too far into that rabbit hole,
You have
Kevin.
5 seconds.
All right.
Tom's not in there, by the way.
Yes, it is. Just like that. At the end of the show already, we're down to the last half hour. And you know what? I just want to let you know that as we opened up saying that numbers don't lie, but liars will manipulate the numbers. And we face what I believe is the most important election of our time in 2024 because we're watching right before our very eyes. I know that if you listened to any of our headliners, whether that's Levin, Beck, or Hannity, Bongino, they're going to say, it's been said, it's a cliche that there's never been an election like this before. This truly is. There's never been an election that's more important than this one coming up because it truly will decide the future, because what's currently in place we're not operating as a constitutional republic. It is far from that. We have seen the weaponization of 3-letter agencies, whether it be the FBI, the IRS, the CIA, the DOJ, and it's playing itself out. And folks like yourself who listen to conservative talk radio, you guys get it. I know that at times we're just preaching to the choir, but we're really not. We're looking for the third party person, the independent, the moderate Democrat. They do still exist. I believe that Robert F. Kennedy is showing that they do exist. I think he's a very viable candidate for the Democratic nomination. I also believe he's a very viable candidate if he were to launch an independent candidacy, because he says a lot of common sense things. And his dad did that, his uncle did that, and of course I'm talking about John and Robert. I'm not talking about the guy that was in the Senate, because there were times where I was very confused by what Ted Kennedy had to say. But even a Ted Kennedy, I think, would look at today's times and say, wow, how did we get all the way here? And unfortunately, I think it was because of policies that were put into place under uh, the presidencies, where those guys were part of the decision making process that led us to where we're at. But the good news is anything can be changed because our Constitution allows that. And speaking of our Constitution, we are anticipating we the people's attorney, Tom DeVore, who is yeah, and we've sent a link out to him, so we're hopeful. In fact, I probably need to shoot him off a quick text message here to make sure that he has received it. He said that he said he was ready to jump on, but in the world of Tom DeVore, I can't imagine what it's like to be in a position like him, where you are defending. And just a little side note, I was in to one of our local shooting ranges last week. My wife and I, we were doing some shooting. Oh, actually, Kevin, you joined us. That's right, because we did some videos. Are those videos up and loaded yet on the YouTube channel? Well, see, Kevin's going to get me up to speed. But anyhow, we were at the shooting range, and the interesting part of the shooting range was is I inquired about some of the different firearms there. And the first question they asked me was, are you part of one of the TROs, temporary restraining orders? And I have to answer, as I've told you guys, my audience, many times, I was part of number one lawsuit that was filed by Thomas DeVore, uh, in regards to this legislation that was put forth by the General Assembly and then, signed into law by J.B. Pritzker, which we believe is unconstitutional. And I find it fascinating because that doesn't apply to everybody. And that's a sad statement, in a constitutional republic, is everybody should be protected by the Constitution. Unfortunately, now we have to go through these hoops to prove that the Constitution is what the Constitution is, the the intended purpose and what our founders wanted to put forth. The Second Amendment is pretty straightforward. I think it's the last three words: "Shall not infringe." Shall not infringe. Yes, I I get it. I understand that there are a lot of illegal guns out there. There is a lot of crime, and I don't believe that you're going to solve crime by taking guns away from legal gun owners. But we're waiting on Tom DeVore. And like I said, I just need to quickly ask him if he has received the link. And I'm going to hit a question mark. There we go. So I sent that off to him. So hopefully he picks that up, because we're waiting for him to jump in the chat. And he might have technical difficulties, because I know where he's down in a part of Illinois that I've been on some of Tom's Facebook lives, that the internet isn't always the best reception. He lives in the country, without doxing him. I'd hate to do that, Kevin. You don't want to dox Tom DeVore. Uh, I'm pretty certain I don't want to go head to head with him in a courtroom either. I saw that, Kevin. Were you aware of that? Yeah, back in July, on July 2nd of 2020, I was in the courtroom down for Judge Michael McCaney's courtroom. And I happened to be there for when he had filed against Governor Pritzker in regards to the executive orders. Was he in his constitutional authority as the executive branch of Illinois to continue in perpetuity these executive orders? one after another, after another, after another. And that was the question. It was a simple question. The Judge Michael McCaney said, no, the Constitution doesn't allow for him to do that in perpetuity forever and ever and ever. But that's kind of what he did, right? I mean, he finally brought it to a head here. What was it? Just in was it May of this year? After 48 executive orders, the governor finally said, okay, I relinquish. We're no longer in a state of emergency as it pertains to the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. And he let go of that. But I was in that courtroom, and the fascinating part is that day, Governor Pritzker's attorney from Chicago came in to Judge Michael McCaney's courtroom and basically told the judge that he didn't have authority in his own courtroom. Boy, oh boy. I don't know if any of you know Judge Michael McCaney. He's been on my show before. I'm fortunate that he actually has been in studio before, sat right next to me. And that was in regards to the Dobbs decision. He came in because he's a constitutionalist. He's a traditionalist when it comes to the Constitution, and he reported as such that the decision that was made in Roe v. Wade should have never been made because it is a states' rights thing. So it was returned to the state. We obviously know where Illinois stands when it comes to the right for life. Not in a very good position. In fact, my taxpayer dollars go to fund abortions in the state of Illinois, which unfortunately I don't want them to. So what can I do about it? Well, I can hold out hope. I can go out and vote for candidates who believe what I believe, that taxpayers should not fund abortions in the state of Illinois. And I think I can agree with a lot of people on that. They don't have to necessarily be right to life people, but they agree that you should not be using taxpayers' money to fund abortions. And then we're not just talking about abortions here in Illinois for Illinois residents. We're talking about residents outside of Illinois. We're funding abortions for non-residents of Illinois. And I don't, like I said, the argument of the right to life, all of those things, at what time, how many weeks, we can have those discussions. But the fact that taxpayers would fund non-residents to have abortions in our state when they can't get that same service in a state like Iowa, Missouri, any of the surrounding states. There's a reason they cross over the borders to have abortions in Illinois, and that's because they are taxpayer funded, and that to me has to stop. It's an issue that I'm very passionate about, and unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to stop anytime soon, but it doesn't mean that we give up the fight. We need to continue to pray about it. We need to continue to push into it. We need to continue to work hard to overturn the legislation that has been signed off on here locally. So once again, I know that at times. So I looks like Tom's going to be back here shortly. He had an issue at the farm with his son, so he's going to be on air here in a second. He can give us a quick update. He's going to be cutting into his own time. I'm going to tell him that, Oh, there he is. Oh, my gosh. He's half the man he used to be.
I'm two-thirds the man I used to be.
Two-thirds the man. Look at that. It's one thing to see it on a Facebook post, but geez Louise.
Yeah.
87, is it 87 pounds, Tom?
87, yes, sir. I'm 188. I was 275.
He's pressing in on me. Golly. I'm going to have to lose some more weight now. I'm going to have to eat better. But I think I do eat well. And you'd probably say that's what attributed to your weight loss, right?
Well, I mean, there's a million different plans, Dave, and ideas and concepts. I talk to people all the time, and you have to figure out what works for each individual person. But ultimately, it's a combination of two things: less calories by eating less, or burn more calories by doing something, causing your metabolism to go up. So a combination of that in any way that works for a person, whether, people talk about keto, they talk about this, they talk about that. None of them are bad. None of them are great solutions in and of themselves. You just have to find a way that it works. And everybody's body's different, whether your equilibrium based upon your activity is 1,500 or 1,700 calories a day. Anything below that puts you in a deficit where you can lose weight. You have to figure that out over time for yourself. But ultimately, that's where it's at. There's no magic formula. It's, again, burn more calories or eat less calories and have to figure that out.
Well, you're definitely an encouragement to many people that it can be done. Obviously, you're right before our very eyes here on Facebook Live. You can also find us on YouTube at the DPB Show, Twitter, and Rumble. Hey, Tom, I know that we're gonna have to go to a break, but then we're gonna come back. I want to hear what's happening with these cases as they get put forth to not only at the Illinois Supreme Court, which I hope at some point will make a decision that people who have a vested interest in the outcome shouldn't be allowed to have a ruling position on these things. But I know the Illinois Supreme Court is hearing these cases. The federal Supreme Court is hearing it. So go ahead and just give us the quick and dirty about where we're at, and then we can continue it on the other side of break.
Well, I mean, the state court case of Calkins that, as you're aware, got to the Supreme Court in a hurry. They had oral argument on that. It's going a couple months ago, give or take now, and the Supreme Court still got it under advisement. We can talk about more about that and how that impacted the cases that we filed when we get back. And then the United States Supreme Court, the federal case was argued in front of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. And again, I think they still have it under advisement, and we'll have to see what they rule too. So.
Well, I think that what I heard, I was listening a little bit to Center Square because we carry them a little bit, and they were.
I know Greg; he's a good guy.
And they were talking about the position of the Supreme Court having a ruling position on this legislation, but yet having a vested interest in the outcome politically.
You mean because of the finance contributions they got from the governor?
Exactly.
Okay. You asking me about that?
Yeah, I'm asking you about that. What is your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is that, I'm glad to see that in a various different ways that people are starting to appreciate every branch of government more than they probably did 3 years ago. And every branch of government, David, including the judiciary, has human beings in it. And because there are human beings in it, it has a political tenet, right? And how that political tenet might impact the process of that branch of government, you have to figure that out as you go. But I mean, certainly these justices that we're talking about, they got $1 million contribution from Governor Pritzker. Is that going to impact their decision? I can't say for sure because I'm not them. And I'm never going to say it is or it isn't. I don't know, to be honest with you. But I do know as human beings, because I'm a human being too, that if somebody gave me $1 million contribution, I may not do what they want. And I wouldn't certainly push it to the point that I would let my conscience be impeded by that contribution. But I can tell you as a human being, if it's a close call and I can go either way, is that going to impact me? Of course it is, because I'm human and I'm not flawed enough to admit that, yes, it could influence me. So having said that, I would have done everything I could to stay out of the way. It's what I would have done personally. But am I going to discredit or criticize those justices for not getting out of the way? I'm certainly not going to do that. I'm just saying if it would have been me, I would have got out of the way because I would have known if it's not a close call, I don't care which way I'm coming down. But if it's a close call for me and I'm not sure, and I know the law well enough to know sometimes it's really about my intuitive or my inherent judgment which way I'm going because the law is new. $1 million contribution going to cause me to at least have that in the back of my mind? Probably, which means I would have got out of the way. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that answers it. Hey, Tom, we're going to jump into break. We're a little long in this segment, but when we come back, I want to hear specifically about the temporary restraining orders as they stay in force and your cases that you have filed and what the status is on those. But we'll do that when we come back here at 2.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Now, Tom, you're still, see, this is the fancy thing. Our very own Kevin Ferris, and I know you were on earlier in the week. Was it last week?
Yes.
We've advanced ourselves. So now we're doing, we're high tech here at Cities 92.
I see that.
We've got we've got it all. I'm getting used to it. I'm not as gifted as you are. I noticed that you have a better way of looking at the camera. I'm getting used to that. I'm a radio guy. I didn't realize it only would take me 3 years of doing radio to realize I'm not a camera guy.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at you when I'm talking and not up at the camera, it can kind of make it look weird. But it's you get used to
right.
it.
It does. And especially when I'm looking over at Kevin. But hey, I appreciate you. I know that it was short notice, but I was telling our audience and some of our Facebook live audience that I was at a shooting range last week, and Kevin was with me. I took him out to the range, and he fired my pistol and my wife's pistol. But we were looking at other firearms, and the gentleman behind the counter, the assistant manager, says, "Are you part of one of the TROs?" And I'm like, proudly say, "Yes, I am. Number one. I'm part of number one. I was in at the beginning."
Yeah,
now,
you were.
There was another gentleman, though, that came in, and he was livid. He said, "You got to be kidding me. You've got to," and you could tell this was someone who's passionate about the Second Amendment, but probably it would have been a reach for him. I'm just making a judgment call. I'm not saying I know this guy, but he like $200 would have been a lot of money to him, and he was just fit to be tied. That's what he started. And he said, "I don't mean to vent at you guys, but it doesn't seem fair that, that not everybody has the ability to be part of these lawsuits." And I said, it is, but that's unfortunately.
Don't talk to me. Go talk to Pritzker. It's not my fault.
And that's what I said. It said it's unfortunate that we have to actually file lawsuits about constitutional issues. But
yeah, I mean, and I politely with people like that, I'll say sometimes, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And they'll say, "I'll just make something up. I'm a teacher." I'll be like, "Okay, I'm going to bring my kids over tomorrow night, and you're going to tutor them for a few hours, and I can't afford it, but I it's." Education, we shouldn't have to pay for. They would not like that, right? No. So it's like when you're talking about lawyers or maybe doctors or people that they believe financially have some superiority, which we don't necessarily, that all of a sudden now that ought to be that way. And I get it. It happens sometimes. So we can't afford to be on that case. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, go talk to the legislature. Don't talk to me. I didn't do it.
Well, and this is, I think, what we're doing is we're informing people that you've got to know what's happening. Go ahead. While we came in hot and heavy, Kevin said, "We're going to come back," and we are back. We're back with the people's attorney. That's what I've deemed you to be, Tom. The people's attorney, always taking on the cause of the people of Illinois, because we have questions, right? The General Assembly has basically had a pass for the last at least 3 years. I believe it's 40 years under Michael Madigan, where they pushed legislation through, and now we're just realizing they just hit upon all cylinders, especially under Governor Pritzker. You're obviously very familiar with Governor Pritzker and this General Assembly that seems to be in place here now for too long. But they're going to continue to press the envelope. You have set up the ability to file cases. You have, I think, is it four that you're involved, or three?
There's four. They're all one now. But there were four.
Yeah, you combined them. So you started with 4 separate cases, got them all combined. So where are those cases at this particular time?
Well, unfortunately, they're sitting idle because of the efforts of Mr. Calkins. But we were in the process, David, of doing discovery, as you're aware. Mm-hmm. Because I assure you, the things that I was asking for were, and I say this seriously, were probably in the grand scheme of things more important than this gun case, which has to do with the gamesmanship and the impropriety of how they pass legislation in Illinois. I was going right after it, and I had them right where I wanted them. And again, Dan's case got in the way and has completely disrupted all of that. So our case right now is not going to move. And I'm, sitting here still hopeful that we might be able to do some real good for people in Illinois. But if I'm being a little bit skeptical, I'm not so having warm and fuzzies about what the Illinois Supreme Court's getting ready to do to Dan's case.
Well, and unfortunately, that then puts you in a position to go to a higher level. Is that correct? To the federal courts?
Yeah, I mean, we still have some options in the federal court. I mean, there's never been an equal protection argument made in the federal court yet. like the one we made in the state court, that's still on the table for us, certainly. We'll see what happens here as things continue, but we had them right where we wanted them. And we can talk a little bit more about that, David, in a second. But in the state court, which is really where I wanted to send this home, we had them right where we wanted them. And we still got a shot, but it's been the short game is what I call it, has deflated that significantly.
Well, and especially knowing, as we just alluded to, that there are two justices who received contributions from the governor. And obviously, I don't know if you're aware of this because it struck me, and I was talking with Carol Davis about this earlier. I had her on as a guest, and I want to quickly get through this. But when you look at the numbers back to 2010, the last 4 gubernatorial races, going back to Bill Brady against Pat Quinn, there were 3.7 million ballots cast, or counted, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And the fascinating thing is in 2014, it was 3.6 million. But when you get to 2018, Rauner versus Pritzker, there were 4.5 million. And then you go into 2022, the gubernatorial race, it was 4.1 million. Now, Tom, you and I know that we've lost population in the state of Illinois, contrary to what Governor Pritzker says, that it was a faulty census counting, even though we've lost a congressional district. But here we have every one of those Republican candidates received about the same amount of votes, 1.7 million, barely hitting the 1.8 million mark with Rauner over Quinn. They never.
That's where I was at too in 22, almost 1.8 million.
And Pritzker realized almost 700,000 more votes from that original 2010.
That's right.
How do you gain that ground? And it's only one-sided. The Republicans.
It's easy. It's early voting. It's mail-in ballots, and they're going out and they're chasing low information, low propensity voters, David. I know exactly how they're doing it. I know exactly how we as Republicans can do it and compete with them. But we have an Illinois GOP that's completely oblivious and defunct and will never have the talent or the infrastructure or the ability to put that plan in place, which is why I don't even deal with them. I know exactly how the Democrats are doing it. It's not because of their superior policies or superior ideas. They've turned it into a math game. And I'm not saying there's not some cheating. There's always some level of cheating. Yeah. But for the most part, it's institutional superiority. And the Republicans, they're fools, and they're getting bled dry with their resources by consultants, and they're not doing what it takes to win elections. That's exactly where those votes are coming from. It's coming from people that know very little about politics. They don't really know, they might know who the governor is, but they don't know a whole lot about anything else other than that. And they go get their vote. It's not get out to vote anymore, Mr. Blumenshine. It's go get the ballot. And Republicans better damn well figure it out. Ballot collecting, ballot harvesting, ballot chasing, whatever you want to call it. Tom, we're up against the end of the show. So now I'm going to get you back in, and I anticipate you'll be under 180 pounds then. But we do appreciate you always joining us and giving us an update, Tom. For our audience, thank you for joining us here today on the DPB Show. Continue to go out and like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, the DPB Show. And, Tom DeVore, he's easy access out there. Go to his Facebook page. He has a great post today about what life looks like 150 years in the past. Go read that. It's interesting. But once again, we wish you peace. We wish you kindness and mercy and everything else today from the DPB Show. Until next week, we're signing off. Take care, Dave.